everyone. My name is Gina Paulus. I'm the owner of Homebodies in-home fitness training, and I'm super excited to have one of my clients here with you today. She's going to help share with you some of the information that she has found over the years to help herself with her workouts and her weight and all of that. So I worked with Betsy for the past 7 years, and she has been a very consistent client, very committed, and I can't wait to hear what she has to share with all of us today. So welcome, Betsy.
Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right in. What are your favorite parts of working out at home?
I like the privacy the most, I think. Years ago, I joined a gym. I went to an aerobics class on a regular basis. I hated every second of it. I really am not into group activities. I'm kind of a klutz. I'm not known for being graceful. Everybody was like jumping around to the music. I couldn't keep up with them. This was like many years ago when women were still getting all dressed up glitzy to go to the gym, and I was there in like sweatpants. I was like the big fat girl in the back row, and I couldn't keep up. So I stopped going. And then eventually, as time went by, I started doing stuff on my own at home. I had a health rider. I used to ride 5 days a week. Then I got an exercise bike. I started using tapes on my own. So I did exercise regularly, a good 5 days a week. And I owned a home, so I was very active physically tending to that and to my yard. But I probably wasn't very effective at what I was doing because I was just kind of winging it without any guidance. So I really, I like being able to do it at home. It's totally private. It doesn't matter what I look like because nobody's going to see me but my trainer, and who cares? And it's also incredibly convenient. I mean, I can just like roll out of bed and exercise. I always exercise first thing in the morning because if I don't do it in the morning, it doesn't get done. And of course, these days I get off to a much later start, but that's okay. I still exercise before I do really anything else in the course of the day. And I don't even have to get dressed.
Well, that's a whole assortment of benefits right there. That's a pretty good sales pitch, I would say.
I do tend to exercise in my pajamas.
Whatever works. At least you put on clothes for me.
I do, yes. Usually not sneakers, just flip-flops, but yes.
Well, that's a really good point too, because a lot of times at the gym, they require that you wear sneakers or shoes, and a lot of people prefer to work out barefoot, so that's another part.
Yeah.
Very good. So what are you most pleased with about your progress since starting with Homebodies?
Well, I started with Homebodies. I started looking for a trainer, 7 years ago. I needed somebody to come to my house, and I found Homebodies, which was perfect. And I was working in Boston, and I was able to have my weekly session on Thursday nights after I got home from work. So that worked out pretty well because then the next day was like my Saturdays. Fridays were like my day off from exercising for the week. So I love Thursday nights. I got it out of the way. So that was really convenient to have somebody come to my home. And I first started looking for a trainer because I had knee surgery. I've had a bunch of orthopedic issues. I'd had knee surgery, and I had surgeries before, but this time I just wasn't bouncing back the way I had. So I figured I needed some assistance. And I had also reached a point in life where it's like, okay, it's time to lose some weight. I'm getting too old to screw around with my health. So it was kind of like a two-pronged thing that got me going. And since then, it's worked out pretty well because I did lose 40 pounds, about 40 pounds, and I've kept it off.
Congratulations.
Partly from completely changing the way I eat, and partly because I exercise on a regular basis because I know the exercise helps me keep the weight off.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I don't hate shoveling snow too much because it burns a lot of calories. I try to look that way.
That's a silver lining for you.
Yeah. So, my overall goal at this point is just to be able to keep doing physically as I get older what I can do now. So apparently, if I keep exercising like this, I should be able to at least keep doing the kind of things that I like to do right now. Anyway, that's
I don't see why not. I mean, so far so good, right?
Yeah. So I'm definitely systemically, I'm healthier than I used to be. I'm physically stronger, and I managed to work around all my various frailties, and I can still do the kind of things I like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some issues with certain parts of your body from time to time, but you always show up and you're always interested in working what you can work.
Yes, yes.
And that is a huge thing because everybody has problems, but it's what you do in spite of them that makes the difference.
Right. And when I've had surgeries, it's like one of my first questions is, how soon can I start physical therapy? How soon can I work with my trainer again? Because I want to get back to where I was.
For sure, for sure. Well, that's a good segue into the next question. You have overcome a lot of health obstacles. Tell us about one or two that you are particularly proud of.
Well, I think the biggest one since I've met you is having a bilateral knee replacement. Most people don't have both knees replaced at the same time, but I did because I wanted to get over with, and I was afraid if I had one done, I would never have the other one done. So that was a big recovery. It was very painful, but I had been working with home bodies for most of the whole year before I had the surgery. So when it came time to recover and go through physical therapy, I had an advantage already because I was already pretty strong and I was used to exercising. So that definitely helped me with the physical therapy. And
Right.
then once I got back home because I was in rehab for a couple of weeks. Once I got back home, as you know, I started exercising as soon as I could, not down on the floor yet, but like on the couch, and eventually got back down on the floor. My physical therapist actually told me once that most people who've had just one knee replaced never get back down on the floor again, and it kind of surprised me. And she said, never stop getting back on the floor, because if you fall, you need to know how to get up, right? As you get older.
Absolutely. Right.
So I was able to not only get back on the floor again, but up and down, no problems getting up and down and working on a mat and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really back to where I was.
For sure. No, that's definitely something to be proud of. And that's a very brave step that you took to get the two knees done at once. Not everybody would go for that.
Well, I thought I was well prepared because I had had like a rotator cuff surgery, which is kind of major surgery. And I'm like, I've had all this orthopedic pain and all the stuff I've dealt with, so I can deal with this too. But it was a lot harder than I expected it to be.
Maybe ignorance is bliss in that instance, huh?
Sometimes, I guess, yeah. But it all worked out okay.
Yeah, it worked out okay. Your knees work great. They're actually ahead of what the goal was, really.
They're fully functional. I mean, I'm not supposed to run and jump, but I didn't want to run and jump anyway, so that's not an issue. But, I'm a very serious gardener and I do a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of physical activity outside, and I can do all those things I need to do. And my range of motion is beyond what the goal is for most people. So it's worked out pretty well.
That's really something else. I'm so proud of this result, and I tell people all the time about your procedure and how you recovered from that because it's really inspirational for people to hear, and it's just important. Like I think a lot of people think, oh, I have this problem, it's so bad for me, but not to say yours was the worst case by any means, but in terms of surgery, it's a tough one to do and you did it. And it just shows you what can be done with some focus and some commitment. So it's really a great story.
Before the surgery, one of the pre-op nurses said to me, "This is about the biggest orthopedic surgery you can have."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah. I was impressed with that for sure.
oh well, thank you.
So what tips do you have for times when someone has a medical procedure coming up? What might they be able to do to prepare themselves for such a thing?
Well, I'm always very logistics minded, so I always think ahead, especially because I live alone in a two-story house. How am I going to handle myself and take care of myself and do what I need to do all by myself while I'm recovering? So I like to think ahead and, okay, what are my day-to-day activities and what do I have to prepare ahead of time? For example, I've had 2 rotator cuff surgeries. And when you have rotator cuff surgery, you can't wear your normal clothes. You can't pull a shirt over your head. You can't pull your jeans up. So ahead of time, I thought, okay, what kind of clothing do I have to have on hand? Okay, sweatpants, things that button down the front. I mean, I know someone who had the same surgery the year before I had my first one, and she came home and was completely unprepared and couldn't even get dressed. So that was a cautionary tale. And then,
Wow.
so you just have to think ahead. if you have to use a walker, do you have 2 floors? Do you need a walker on each floor? And for me, okay, how am I going to carry things from one room to the next? So I got a tray that fit on the walker. What kind of shower seat do I need? Do I need a raised toilet seat? I mean, I know I sound like a really old lady, but it all worked for me. And I think one of the most important things was thinking about what I had to do ahead of time. I practiced ahead of time. How am I going to fill the bird feeders with one hand? And I practiced and I figured out how to do it. And
Nice.
so it really relieved a lot of the anxiety beforehand because I knew how I was going to handle things. And I had a friend who had both her knees replaced at the same time a couple of years ago. So I was going to lend her some of my equipment, which obviously I don't need to use now. And I brought the stuff to her house and I showed her everything. I said, okay, now practice. Show me how you're going to do it. And she told me afterwards that made a huge difference because she knew exactly how she was going to do everything.
I think that's incredible. And I'm glad that you're sharing this with other people, not only in this interview, but it sounds like in your personal life too, because these are real life issues that people face. And it's scary going into surgery to begin with. And if you don't have your plan, it's all the more scary.
Well, when I had my first shoulder surgery, there was one thing that I didn't think of. A lot of people sleep sitting up in a chair afterwards, but I was not going to do that. It's like, no, I'll prop myself up in the bed. It'd be much more comfortable sleeping in my own bed. But you have to wear a giant sling on your arm 24 hours a day. So when you're sleeping, your arm is like up in this position. So it was very hard to settle myself into bed, especially that first night. And I got settled into bed, and some friends had sent me a Kindle, which was great because I like to read in bed, but I wouldn't have been able to hold a book. But with the Kindle, I could read in bed. So I'm lying in bed, I'm settled in, I'm reading. And it's like, okay, I'm ready to turn off the light and go to sleep. And I'm like, oh, the light is on the right and it's my right arm and I can't do it. And I had to get out of bed. So I hadn't thought of that. So I went online and I ordered one of those lights that fit over the headboard with a pull chain. That solved the problem.
So, so in all the procedures you've had, that's the one thing you forgot?
That was really the one thing. Yeah.
Okay, so you get a 99.9 on your
Oh,
score
well,
for this.
well, thanks.
Oh my gosh, that is too much. All right, so shifting gears a bit to just more, enough with all the injury stuff. Let's move
Yeah.
on to the normal life and normal day part of the interview here. So what do you tell yourself if you end up missing a day or even a week of exercise?
You know, I don't beat myself up ever about it because, you know, I've been doing this for a while now. And I know if I have a really bad week, and I do have them sometimes. In fact, as you know, just recently, where
Yeah.
basically I rode the bike for a few days. I didn't do any workouts at all. But I know I'll pick it up and start again the beginning of the next week. And I just figure in a week like that where I cannot motivate myself at all, it's my mind and my body is saying, okay, it's time to take a break. So I look at it that way. I don't think it's bad. I mean, and you know, I have a week like that, maybe every few months, maybe not even that often.
Right.
I don't really think it makes much of a difference.
No, and it's funny that you just mentioned the frequency because so I have two types of clients generally. Actually, I wouldn't say you necessarily fall on either side, which is part of why I wanted to interview you because you bring a different perspective to this. But a lot of my clients are either crazy obsessive, like too obsessive, or they're not obsessive enough. Like they'll give themselves months off. I'm gonna take the whole summer off. Like they're just not, thinking that it's a super serious thing. And the thing about that is if you do the obsessive side and you go with, oh, I want to work out every single day, people like that, they have to take rest weeks because they're actually pushing themselves and your body gets stronger when you're resting. You don't build muscle when you're lifting weights. You build the muscle when you're in bed or when you're sitting on the couch. That is actually how this works. And if you never give yourself that extra time, that extra downtime, you actually don't get stronger. So what you're doing intuitively and instinctually, which I love, is you're giving yourself that week off sort of more spontaneously or organically. And so it ends up working out the same either way. You're taking rest X amount of times a year, but you're doing it when it feels right for you, or maybe when it fits your schedule or whatever else is going on. So
Yeah.
I'm totally
Yeah.
in support of that. I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think it's a great mindset to have.
And occasionally, as you know, I miss a day, or, I'll do the workout or I won't get on the bike the same day or vice versa because of what I like to call poor time management.
Yeah,
Because it's already like noon and I haven't started yet. It's like, oh, well, too late now. It's not going to happen.
for sure. No, and I mean it's interesting because as a trainer I have to work with all different personality types. And what I have learned, I've now been a trainer for over 20 years, and I have learned you swim with the tide, you do not swim against it. Okay, so if you're saying I'm going to work out by noon and that's how I do it, fine, that's worked for us. There's no problem. Now, if I have no, back when you worked in Boston, you either had to do it at 5 o'clock or whatever time, or you had to do it in the evening. So that was different, but your life now allows for this schedule, you know?
I did. I used to get up at 4:45 so I could
Yeah.
exercise
So
before I
you
went.
definitely made that work. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we've got to find what works. And I love working with people, hearing their feedback. What works for me is not going to work for you, is not going to work for the next person. So I just really like the fact that you're an active participant. So some people want me to come in and they want me to say, like, do this, do that, do the other thing. And that's fine. I will do that. But I've noticed over the years it works better when I can get the feedback and we can do it together and make a plan that works for both of us.
Well,
Because
the
when it's
thing is,
partly your idea, it's going to go better than if it's just my idea.
and also I know I can't afford to have I can have two, a bad week and then the next week is better, but not perfect. But that's
Mhm.
okay because I'm getting back on track. And then the week
Right,
after that is usually really good.
for
But
sure.
I know that I can't afford to have two lazy weeks in a row. Well, it's not even lazy, just two non-active weeks in a row because I'll lose momentum.
Right, and that actually reminds me of another point I wanted to bring up. You you mentioned the shoveling. You also do gardening. You
Yes.
also walk the beach sometimes.
Yes, I do.
You can tell us about why you do the beach if you'd like.
Oh, well, I'm kind of an artist. I make things out of driftwood, but not what people typically make. I make, birds and fish and masks and stuff like that. But a lot of driftwood artists, you know, cut the wood they shape the wood, they saw it, whatever, and I just use the natural shapes. But I get my wood on Plum Island during the winter. So I hit the beach usually every week, as long as it's above 20 and not too windy. I'll go out on the beach, and I like the beach in the winter anyway because there's nobody there, and I like it when it's empty. And
Right.
I haul driftwood. Like I'll take a big bag and fill it up and walk back to my car, and I'll have like some of it like on my shoulders. And then if there's plenty of wood on the beach, I'll leave that in the car. I'll go back out again and get more. And walking in the sand, it's really quite strenuous. But I
Oh,
enjoy.
for sure. Yeah, no, that's totally another form of working out or daily
Yeah,
activity.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And then the gardening is rather rigorous from what I hear.
Yes, I actually have four shrubs I have to plant, and that's a lot. That's very strenuous. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so you definitely are you're not sitting around all day long on your butt. Like you're doing stuff. Even on a day that you might say is like a rest week or a week that you miss, you're not sitting for the full day.
No, no, I'm usually up and around and doing things, and especially because I own a house by myself, and there's always something that needs to be done. And I do
Right.
have a very large garden, and particularly this time of year. I mean, I get up in the morning, and even before I exercise, I'll go out in the yard, and I'll like this morning I was out there weeding for a while.
Nice. So
Um,
all that's great and all that adds up. So I think that, the two together, you do a great job of blending the daily activity combined with working out. So I think that's really, really great.
well, it's the working out that helps me be able to do what I do outside.
That's a good point. They work together, they feed
Yeah,
into each other.
yeah.
All right. So moving into the food portion of this, because you mentioned that you lost 40 pounds. Most people aren't going to lose that amount of weight just on exercise alone. So I did want to pick your brain a little bit on some tips you might have for us with nutrition and the nutrition side of things. So what are your tips on making your meals work for you?
Well, I don't like to cook. I'll start out by saying that, but I do eat pretty healthy most of the time. Um, for one thing, I'm addicted to reading labels. So I really am very aware of the nutritional value of what I'm eating. I think to keep weight off, I mean, the exercise is definitely really important, but if you've lost weight and you want to keep it off, it really does take a lot of the fun out of eating because you just can't eat without thinking about it. Although when I go out to a restaurant, lots of times I'll eat without thinking about it, but that's kind of like, a treat day. You just kind of have to be aware of what you're eating. And I really have not cut anything out of my diet since I lost weight. Even when I was actively losing weight and dieting, I ate chocolate every single night. So I eat snacks, I eat ice cream. It's just that in moderation, or I don't eat them all the same day. And but as for cooking, I just I have a real sweet tooth. Unfortunately, I love fruit, so I eat plenty of fruit. I make sure that I have vegetables, and I'll buy vegetables, and then I'll get some protein and mix it in with the vegetables. I might buy some chicken and cut it up and put it in with the vegetables. So I just sort of combine things
Okay.
and assemble things rather than cook from scratch.
That's my
So
favorite line ever. I don't
assemble-
cook, I assemble.
I do. I assemble, and you can eat healthy while you assemble things. It's entirely possible.
I'm
The-
a fellow assembler too, so I appreciate this because a lot of my clients, gosh, love them. They're great at what they do. They're cooking these gourmet meals every night, and I'm like, I cannot even think of that. Like that is just not something for me. So it's nice to just talk about the assembling of the meal.
and also, since the whole quarantine thing, um, when that started, I had a couple people say to me, "Well, you don't like to cook." She said, "Well, you'll be doing takeout all the time because you eat takeout all the time anyway." I'm like, I hardly ever get takeout.
Yeah,
I hardly ever get takeout. So, I mean, sometimes I get a salad for takeout.
right.
Or even like if I like had a craving for Chinese food, I'd get like steamed vegetables and chicken for takeout. So I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I don't get takeout. I get less takeout than the average person, I think.
right. Well, I think that's a big part of what's helped you because you mentioned that have a treat when you go to a restaurant, and that obviously you can fit that in. But when you start doing the takeout multiple nights a week, it really starts adding up, and you're escaping all of that by not doing that. So that's a nice calorie savings for you right there.
Yeah.
So, so you did touch on this a little bit, but I wanted to dive a bit deeper into what type of snacks do you love that fit into your eating plan?
Well, you've seen my the cupboard where I keep my snacks. And now I have a whole box of additional snacks to have on hand now that I'm staying home a lot. And I'm really into portion control. I have to be into portion control. I'm really bad at portion control. So I tend to buy, things, just individual packaged snacks because even though it's more expensive, because I'm terrible at portion control. So I can have like multiple snacks and not open, if I had a big bag of potato chips, I'd eat all the potato chips. So if I have a tiny bag of potato chips for like 110 calories, I'll open just that one bag and eat just that one bag. So at least I have that level of discipline. But
Right,
I eat chocolate every day, but I buy the individually wrapped pieces of chocolate. So I know that, oh, this piece of chocolate is 50 calories.
right,
So say I'm having dessert at night and I want chocolate, I'll have two pieces and there's my 100-calorie snack, and it's two pieces of chocolate. So it just keeps me in line in terms of how much I'm eating. So I have all kinds of chips, and in my individual portions I have little tiny cookies in little tiny bags that are like 140 calories for the bag, but that's not something I eat every night because I try to keep my snacks no more than like 120 130 calories at a time. And sometimes I eat healthy snacks like a hard-boiled egg or some low-fat cheese. So all my snacks aren't bad. Um,
nice.
and sometimes I eat fruit for snacks. So, and then there also, I used to things like almonds or crackers and stuff. I used to count those out, but now I'm pretty good at eyeballing it, so I don't really count them anymore.
Okay.
So, so I eat everything. I just try to eat not too much of it.
Gotcha. So if somebody were to make a trip to Trader Joe's and pick a few snacks, are there any that jump out that you would recommend?
When I go to Trader Joe's, I buy raspberries because I love raspberries and the price is really good.
Okay,
So I will make a special trip to Trader Joe's to buy raspberries. I mean,
gotcha.
that's really my snack that jumps out at Trader Joe's.
Okay. What about
Because
at your local grocer? What type of snack foods have you been grabbing recently?
um, chocolate. I've been eating more chocolate.
Okay. Is
More
this like a quarantine
the
self-soothing type?
quarantine thing, I've been eating more chocolate. Like
Yeah.
I'll eat breakfast and then I'll have a little piece of chocolate for a breakfast dessert. So yeah, I've been eating more chocolate. But on the other hand, I haven't gained any weight while I've been quarantined, which is pretty amazing. Well, it's not so amazing because I've been exercising later in the morning. So by the time I have my first meal, it's lunchtime. So I'm really only having 2 meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's worked out pretty well actually. And
Definitely. Yeah,
hacking it.
no, that's a great way to keep the calories in line without feeling as deprived, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you don't have to be as obsessive about it the rest of the day because you've got, all those meals or snacks. Like you didn't eat a lot of things before noon and then you don't have as much room for food later in the day.
Right.
So that's a great strategy for sure. I remember some sort of I didn't try them because I think they had gluten and I'm one of those gluten-free people.
Right.
But there were some sort of crackers that you really loved at one point.
Triscuits.
Oh, okay. So it's simple. Yeah.
It's Triscuits. I ate Triscuits when I was dieting, especially. I still eat Triscuits now because Triscuits are actually really healthy.
Yeah.
They have a lot of fiber. They're really low sodium, but they taste really salty and crunchy, but they're low sodium. They have a lot of fiber. And if you get just the plain flavor, it's only got 3 ingredients.
Wow.
So it's really, really healthy. And now they make the little mini size ones. And it's like eating a real snack. Like it's crunchy and it's salty and it comes in different flavors. So yeah,
Right.
I love my Triscuits.
Triscuits. That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did mention about treating yourself at a restaurant here and there or on a special occasion. Maybe lately the restaurants aren't open, but maybe going to the ice cream stand, something like that. What is your philosophy on that? Because a lot of people that lose weight, either while they're actively losing or while they're maintaining, feel fearful about treating themselves and think they can't do it.
If I get a craving for something, um, a piece of cake or a pie or something I normally wouldn't eat on a regular basis, I kind of put it off. I hold off for at least a week. And if I still have that craving a week and a half goes by and I'm still thinking about that, I go ahead and eat it.
Right.
Because, I eat pretty healthy most of the time. And eating something like that once in a while, it's not going to make any difference in the long run.
Yeah, that's so smart. And I think people really struggle with that because going back to what I was mentioning about the obsessive person compared to the person who isn't trying very hard, it's really great to be more in a middle position where you're able to do both sides of it when it's appropriate. And I just think you've done a great job at balancing because we are here to live life and going out to eat and enjoying yourself is part of life. And I think that's important. And I also think that it can rejuvenate you to do that and say, all right, now I'm going to go back to my normal food and it's not a big deal because you know that you will have another treat again. And you're
Well,
also finding treats that you love anyway for your normal day, which is another important thing. But I just feel like to make this work for the long run, we've got to be more in the moderation and not in the all or nothing.
yeah, I just can't see. The only thing that I haven't eaten since I lost weight 7 years ago, I haven't eaten anything like I haven't gotten to a fast food place. A couple of
Okay.
times I've gone to McDonald's and gotten like a breakfast sandwich. If I was somewhere and, I like an egg McMuffin because I know that's not so bad. And it's only 300 calories.
Right, right. Not so bad at all.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't eaten any of that stuff, but
right.
that's literally the only type of food I have cut out.
That's really great. I love that you found that balance between your,
And during
I
the
guess, the
summer,
dieting days or the leaner days and then the
yeah,
treat
and
days.
during the
But
summer, I eat ice cream every week.
yeah, no, I love it. I think that's great. All right, so you obviously have me as a trainer, and you must like it because you've been doing it every week for
Yes,
7 years now.
yes.
So if a friend was interested in hiring a trainer but hadn't decided to actually do it, what might you tell him or her?
Well, I have encouraged friends to try using a trainer. Nobody's really listened to me yet, but I said, I tell them to give it a shot. I mean, it's worth trying, and
Right,
it's so much easier than doing it on your own. It really is. I mean, the days that that I'm working with you directly, and I don't have to like motivate myself to do a workout, that's like the best because I don't have to think about it. I just do what you tell me to do. It just
right,
makes it easier. Also, in terms of just my overall lifestyle and keeping the weight off and keeping exercise, the fact that I sort of report to you every week, I'm sort of aware of like, oh, I'm going to have to tell Gina I only did 2 workouts this week, so let me
right.
do that third workout. So
Gotcha.
that kind of helps. It just I get the support and the structure that I need to be able to maintain, living like this and trying to be healthy.
Well, I appreciate that you have made attempts to get others to try it, and I don't know, just keep fighting the good fight, I guess, right?
Well, it's not always easy. I can't say it's ever really easy, but it's totally worth it. It's very satisfying. I mean, the
Right,
best part is when you're done with the workout, of course.
of course.
That's the best part, but it's satisfying.
Right. All right. That was great because definitely, hearing from somebody who's done it, I mean, there was probably a point when you were just looking at it, considering doing it, and you pulled that trigger and did it. So it's just nice to hear from somebody that has made the plunge that you're glad that you did it and you initiated that and that you're happier that you're doing it now.
I have to say, because I do have multiple orthopedic issues that are, to a certain extent out of my control, it's structural issues, and which I work around and I stay strong and, do what I need to do. But I really think if I had been exercising like this for the past 7 years, I'm sure I wouldn't have this level of mobility, and I'm sure at least be walking with a cane. So
Really?
yes, I really believe that.
Wow.
Well, a lot of the things, a lot of the things I've been through in the various surgeries and the recoveries, and some
Yeah.
people don't recover as well as I do because they don't work at it. That can be part of the reason because they don't work at it, or they don't have the determination that some other people have, or,
Right.
or for some people to a certain extent, some of it's out of their control, of course. But I really think I'd be in really terrible physical shape if I hadn't been exercising like this all these years.
Well, I hope that isn't true, but I also understand where you're coming from, and I don't have a good argument against that. Like, I mean, stuff starts going downhill if one thing goes and then the next. So, I mean, it makes sense. And if that little bit of fear is part of what keeps you motivated, I'm not going to argue because,
Well,
I mean,
I always say,
whatever it takes to be motivated is great,
I always say that I keep exercising because I can't afford not to.
Exactly. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, those are all the questions that I have for you, Betsy. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
No, just this is what works for me, but everybody has to kind of find their own path, even when it comes to dieting. I mean, some people like formal diets. I was completely informal about it, and that worked for me. I don't like that. I don't like structure in that regard. So everybody's got to find their own path and figure out what works for them with something they can stick to. But basically, it's a lifestyle change, and you have to make it into a habit.
Gotcha. That's great words of wisdom right there. All right, so we will be interested to continue to follow your progress, Betsy, and you have impressed a lot of people. I know that you've given us some articles and client of the month and different things. And now with this interview, I just really appreciate you being willing to share your journey with us and hopefully help inspire some other clients, or future clients, give them some ideas that they might be able to take back for their own
Great.
home-based workout. And I know that we're all working out at home at our homes, but we're in it together, and that we're all working towards the same thing. We want to be healthier, happier, function better, feel better. And so I know that some of these other viewers will definitely appreciate your words of wisdom to support them on their journey as well.
Well, I hope I could be helpful.
All right, well, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Well, thank you.